Hi, I'm Alexandra Grant of the AG Real Estate Group, and I work for RE/MAX Hallmark, which is a RE/MAX actually based out of the Toronto, Ottawa, Barrie, Simcoe, Peterborough. We are one of the largest RE/MAX franchises in Canada, and I work remotely here in Napanee, Prince Edward County, and Belleville. And today, this is my first podcast, and my first guest is Matt Raham. He's been a longtime client of mine for 8 years now. And he's an investment property guru, in my opinion. He's done anything from flips to transitional housing to straight rentals. But I will let Matt tell you a little bit about himself and his background.
Well, thanks, Alexa. This is a new experience for me too, and I'm looking forward to it.
So, Matt, do you want to tell us a bit about your portfolio? What got you kind of started? What made you become the investment person you are?
Absolutely. It was something I was kind of born into, and I would say my father was a contractor.
Yeah.
And that's where it all really kind of started, right from as a kid, just seeing it, being grown up in around it.
Well, next we'll talk about the transitional housing that you do and the community.
Yeah, transitional housing, and it's solved a lot of problems for the community as well as me, the landlord. Instead of having to, these people, I would never rent to them because of the landlord tenant board. The rules around it would make it impossible to tenant these people.
Yeah.
But because of the transitional housing, that allows you to get by that.
Okay.
You're actually you're able to get people housed. And the income's guaranteed.
Yeah.
And if there's problems, you just cannot tenant this person in this building anymore, you can quickly remove them and then give the next person who's homeless underneath the bridge a chance at having a roof over their head. So it's an excellent program. It started right here in Napanee, right at that my house there, rooming house, and it's now being shared across the province and the different municipalities.
Wow. So what government agencies do you have to deal with? Do you collect rent directly from them? Is it government agencies? Who helps you, I guess, in the local authorities to keep this running? So. Well,
yeah, it's definitely cooperation with a lot of services. So the rent that's paid, as far as the rent goes, it's a subsidized unit, which is that's been done before plenty of times. So there's ODSP or whatever Ontario Works, whatever they're on, pays their housing allowance is part of it, and then if there's a remaining amount that needs to be met, that's subsidized by the transitional housing. So yeah, this and it's guaranteed. If something goes wrong on the what are social services side of it, the transitional housing program will guarantee that they'll pay it.
Okay. So obviously some things to think about coming from my background of insurance before real estate is these places are not easy to insure. So there's special insurance you have to think of to set them up. But I wouldn't say that it's, a hat for everyone to wear. You have to be pretty thick-skinned to deal with the problems that come with this. There's some backlash of the neighborhood. Not everybody loves the fact that these type of people are kind of wandering around, but they would be wandering around probably even worse and on our streets more downtown and different areas if you didn't house them. But what kind of problems do you deal with, and what kind of things do you have set up to eliminate some of the problems? Do you have a security system? What certain things do you have in place in order to set up this kind of rooming house?
Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of programs and things we have in place. We have cameras monitoring the whole place. We have locking doors that, one way locking. We have right now as we speak, we have the county paramedics are actually there doing like an awareness program, teaching people, just checking in on people, kind of trying to take the stigma away from this whole program.
Yeah.
And as far as across the country, we're facing some really bad drug problems. But this program, even though it seems like a lot of the drama is happening kind of around buildings like this, it's actually making it more efficient. They've actually this place, this home has actually saved more on policing. It's enough to fund the whole building every year. So unfortunately, some of the neighbors, they get to see some of that streamlined right to their front door.
Right.
And I understand that. I appreciate that. But it's certainly not making things more costly. It's more efficient when you have a private investor that's managing that. Everything's always more efficient. When you have the government run the entire thing, well, it's never gonna work out that great.
Right. Okay. Well, that's one of the avenues that you've gone. For people that are thinking about flipping houses, what kind of things do you look for? Like, do you look for, grandma's house that hasn't been updated and it just needs cosmetics, but the bones are good, like maybe the windows and the roof and furnace and things like that have been updated? How much of a margin do you need in order to make it worth it to do the flip? Things like that. And do you look more for in town or in the country? Like, where are the types of properties that you tend to go for that makes sense for a flip?
Yeah, well, okay, so typically, if you're doing a flip, you can account for how you can put less lift in the building if you're just gonna sell, if you're gonna do a BRRRR, if you're gonna rent it or renovate it, rent it, refinance, and repeat and do that method, then you really want to be able to put more lift into it. So you have more, especially these days with the prices being so high, you definitely need to have more principal.
Yeah.
And again, you got to have a lower loan to value.
Yeah.
In order to carry this property. As far if you want to do a flip, in my opinion, really the only good time to do a flip is when the market is uptrending. You want to be able to make sure like it's not working against you. If it's plateauing or even going down, it's a bad time to flip. You gotta get in there, get your renovations, and the whole time you're losing money. So you want it to be uptrending if you're going to do a flip, which is why I always prefer to do like the BRRRR method. I don't like selling in the same market that I'm buying in.
Right.
So, and I don't chase cash anymore. I'm not looking for it's not the cash flow itself. There's a lot of reasons why people get into real estate, and usually it's cash flow, and cash flow is often the biggest reason why people get out of it as well. But there's a ton of way to make money off of real estate, and that for me is just a tool to carry the property. But I look at where the money really is giving your property lift. Mm-hmm. It's protecting your wealth from inflation, which is huge. That's why I didn't go and sell everything when the markets went up, because looking at the interest rates or the inflation rate at, 9.5, and really it was higher than that. Yeah. And I just didn't want to cash out and have this fake money sitting in my account dying a fast death of inflation. So I kept my money in the real estate, and that's certainly paid off. Yeah. Been at it for many, many years.
What kind of personality do you think you need to have, and what motivated you to make this a full-time thing?
Yeah, well, I grew up around construction. It was very familiar to me. Like junior kindergarten, the bus dropped me off at my dad's work sites. Right. And
your dad's still a really hard worker.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. He's 80 now and still working away every day. Yeah. So it's what I know. That's a big part of it. I'm very, very comfortable with every aspect of real estate. Built lots of houses from the ground up. Nothing really intimidates me for like a really, really derelict property, because it's only a building. You just have to figure out if it's worth salvaging. If it is, it's just you rebuild it. It's not that complicated.
I know you've made me crawl in some pretty dark places with pretty messed up houses, but you see the potential and you know if it's good or bad pretty quick.
Your coveralls and your flashlight.
From $1 million listing agent to bank sales and complete dives with full of mold and different things.
Yeah, but that's where the money's at, and that's certainly how I started back into real estate. So, long story short, I actually bought my first place when I was 19. And right into, I guess, until about late 20s, and then I got out of it for different reasons, and then a few years later I got back into it hard and fast, and because I knew that's what I knew, and I knew that that's how the only way I knew with my skill set to be able to make money.
Well, it makes sense. It seems like you're passionate about it, that you have, like real estate with me, I always knew from a young age that I wanted to do it. But it certainly helps if you're handy and you have some sense of knowledge of the construction of a building. Like if someone's coming in and they're not handy at all, and obviously it could be a lot more expensive for them if they're hiring out some of these services to fix the buildings.
Absolutely. And when I started back into it, I had nothing. I had $2,600 to my name.
Right.
So I just went cold turkey. Like it's not like I had a job and I was doing on the side. I just quit what I was doing and just bought properties and just went at it, and even lived in my own renovations and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just did what I needed to do to just do it.
Yeah.
And borrow it however which way you got, credit cards, whatever. That's how I got into it.
Well, and one way you started too is we were able to secure, instead of a private lending, a vendor take-back mortgage. We were able to leverage to give people the full asking that a lot of people wouldn't give them if they did a partial VTB for us. So that was really creative. That's
becoming a more popular thing now, and especially when after the pandemic, and they had these pandemic prices super high, and people still want those prices, but it's like, well, the only way we can try and meet you there and give you that price, but this is how you're gonna get it. You're gonna give us a VTB at this excellent rate, for example, and that will pay for that extra price you're looking for.
And what do you think the rate, kind of going good rate for a VTB is right now? Because we've seen some offers where people are trying to get 3 and 4%, which is lower than the standard commercial lending right now. So oftentimes those offers with those kind of VTBs will get thrown away. Like I know from the listing side of things, we like to see at least a 50% down or first mortgage that they've been able to secure. We'll do the rest of the 50%, but they're asking for little percentages. And so I was thinking 8 to 10 is kind of where it should be at. Interest only payments, open-ended, that anyone can pay it back within a 2 to 5 year term. But there's some cases where the property, like one that we had recently looked at, that was 35 units, that you would need longer time to change that into a normal conventional mortgage. But what are you seeing as the average percentage right now for securing a VTB?
That really completely depend on each deal. Each deal you can put a deal together however way you want. There's a million ways to put together a deal. And, but yeah, I mean, I'm comfortable with, I like 10% is really, that's the max I like to do. I like to pay. If I can make it cash flow at 10% anyway, then I know I got a good buy anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I like a lower rate, but I mean, I've got people offer me places or VTBs at 0%, And that's a way of them trying to offload the property. It's something they're bringing to the table to offer in order to sell it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah,
well,
lots of different ways. It totally depends on each. If you're paying if it's just a regular, for example, if you're just trying to buy a single dwelling house, and it's not commercial, it's just a regular house, and you're paying fair market value, asking for a large VTB at 0% is probably unreasonable.
Yeah, we usually see the 0% if it's a commercial property that's been quite an inflated price too.
Yeah.
So they're making up the difference because you're eventually giving them that probably over market value.
And it depends too if you're asking for a VTB in second place, first place.
Sure.
That's a whole lot different too. If they're in second place, they're probably gonna want to see a bigger down payment,
right?
And they're gonna want to see a higher interest rate.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that wouldn't be nuts to see people ask for 15% on a VTB in second place.
Yeah.
Or third place.
Well, these are certainly things that sellers should consider if they have properties that are maybe sitting on the market or a little bit harder to sell to get people into the market. Mm-hmm. But I know that there's not a whole lot of knowledge about VTB, so some people are a bit scared of them. But obviously, they've worked for you for many years, and they've been very successful. So, okay. So when it comes to places that are not your transitional properties, do you have any horror stories? Do you have any positive stories about tenants? Like, how do you pick your tenants? What kind of criteria do you have set up for that? Because obviously we know there's horror stories that the Landlord Tenant Act seems to favor the tenants, and it can take a long time for the sheriff to get to the point where the sheriff has to remove them if they're not paying, like we saw over the pandemic. But how do you caution yourself so that you don't run into really terrible scenarios like that?
Well, to be honest, one of the first things is first impressions. When I meet people, if they show up in cut off sweatpants and they don't give you a firm handshake and they don't look in the eyes, I mean, I'm not even going to process that person's application.
Right.
Or if their mother calls for them, looking for a place, like scratch.
Okay.
That. But there's lots of now there's lots of tools out there, lots of different software, lots of different companies that are offering these services, which are great, and I really need to use them more myself. Also, when you do have a problem and you have to file something with the landlord tenant board, I would definitely suggest do not wait, do not let their rent get in arrears too far. Just if it's due on the 1st and they don't pay on the 2nd, give them the N4. I mean, it's 14 days. If they pay up, great, no worries. It doesn't cost anybody anything. Just scratch it. But you need to get that because if a month later they still haven't paid up and now they're getting behind the next month, you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Well, I remember I was managing a place I had for sale years ago in the county, and it was tenant occupied, and they stopped paying, and the person that was selling it, he just didn't have the mental capacity to deal with these people anymore. So as part of my services, I took it over, which is more of a property management role to do. I don't tend to do that, but I learned a lot. So I actually called the Landlord Tenant Act and said, what do I do? And they did say the same thing, file it right away. Mm-hmm. And it takes a long time to get them on the phone. You're on hold for a long time. But they are very helpful, because if you fill out that form wrong, like a spelling mistake of a name or something so silly and slight, they will just make you start all over again, and then you're waiting another month. So it is good to be stuck on hold, I found, and to call.
Speaking of horror story, my dad actually had a nasty one. He had filed 3 N5s on a tenant and waited for a year for a hearing. Finally got the hearing, and they threw it out because on his first N5 that he had issued her, he forgot to check one little box. So you really got to make sure everything's perfect.
Yeah, that's
no mercy.
That's it's a little much, but they have these things in place for a reason. Mm-hmm. Okay, so for handling the property maintenance and repairs, you tend to do a lot of it yourself. Do you suggest that somebody hires a property maintenance company, or are you losing at that point? Because I know in the county, like if people that have Airbnbs, they are finding it hard to balance the property and break even because they're paying such high property management fees, and they're not living locally, and they can't manage the property, so it's becoming too expensive, and they're starting to put them up for sale. So people that seem to own a lot of them, the property maintenance hiring company seems to make sense. But if someone's just going to own a couple properties, then does it make sense for you to manage it yourself and for the property to also be fairly close to home, like within the same village or town or city? Like, do you ever suggest somebody going, and having a property an hour away, or do you find it's been better having everything kind of close by?
Well, yeah, that was my intentions as I started. I wanted things close so I could grow locally and then maybe expand from that. But I wanted to be able to start off by doing everything myself because I had no money.
Yeah.
As far as it's not one or the other. There's more than one way to skin a cat. You don't have to just hire a property management company or do it all yourself. You can, like now, like I do, like maybe I might still do 10% of the work on my properties, but there's not enough time in the day for me to do it all. It's not possible. Like not maybe barely just keep it up. Never mind the other projects, the other improvements that I want to put into the properties. Like I can't. It's impossible to do it all yourself. Once your portfolio gets to a certain size, like you're not doing it yourself.
Yeah.
But instead of getting a property management company, you just make a good. If you have a good system in place for payment, make sure you got to create a good team right from the start. When you're buying properties, you need to put together your team. You need to have a great real estate agent. You got to have a good real estate lawyer. You got to have a good broker. You got to have all those things in place. You got to have like if you're and now especially in trades, like at first I was doing pretty much everything myself, but you need to get all those trades in line. And this is where, if you want to step away, if you want to continue to manage the properties yourself, but not manage them yourself, if you know what I mean, you need to have all those trades in line with backup trades and everything. So if something does happen and you get emailed a work order or something from one of your tenants, or like a work request or something, maybe if you have the time, sure, you can go out and check out and see what it is. Or if not, you want to design it so you don't even have to be in the country. So you can just forward that request onto your trade or whatever it may be.
So you have basically a portfolio of like plumbers, electricians, handyman, like that you can, so you're kind of managing that yourself in the sense that you have this little network built and you know who to send it to for certain things that need to be fixed.
For sure, yeah. And once you have your property like running smoothly, everything's in tip-top shape, running well. I mean, there's very little usually that. I mean, you can go years without having to do anything,
right?
Except collect the rent. So, paying a property management company like 5 to 7% of your gross rent to do nothing is pretty expensive.
Yeah,
it's a lot cheaper to do it other ways.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you have any technology or like certain programs for processing all the rents and keeping that managed?
An accountant.
Okay. Is it an accountant, or do you have a good bookkeeper too?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. We've kind of covered a lot of the basis here. Is there anything else that you suggest for anyone that's thinking about owning rental properties?
Well, I would say, yeah. Now, if you're getting into it, you're starting from scratch, like I did. First of all, you don't want to be looking at these nice homes that don't need any lift. You want to look for something that needs lift because you want to build equity right off the bat. First of all, you want to buy something for less than what it's worth. That's number one. I always say you make your money when you buy, not when you sell. You want to make your lift, and I would also say, like, single dwelling homes are great because they're easy to offload. If you need to liquidate them, they're easy to do so. If you got a big commercial property, not so easy. Also, single dwelling home is not based, the value is not based on the rent that it brings in. It doesn't matter. You could be rented out for $1. It doesn't matter. If it's a multi-unit building, it all depends on how much money that property is bringing in. So you have to make sure you got.
Yeah, well, there's different lending too when it comes to anything that's more than one unit. Like, you have to put 20% down. Like, I know that I had a lot of first-time buyers that their parents were like, go buy a duplex. You can live in the one side, and then the tenants will pay for the building themselves. But they don't have any more than the 5% down, so they don't qualify because even though they're going to be living in one half of it, the bank still sees it as an investment property, and they require that 20% minimum down. So I get what you're saying about the single family homes. If you need to sell them, then it broadens who can purchase them.
Yeah, you definitely have more easier exit strategies for sure. Also, in this day and age, with the landlord tenant board the way it is, if you can Airbnb it instead of long-term rentals, I would. I'm personally trying to kind of phase out of the long-term rentals. Now, once you get a bigger portfolio, it's not so bad. That aggravation that you go through with the landlord tenant board, or the tenants not paying for long periods of time, it factors in as just another cost.
Right.
And so you just factor that in. It's like a vacancy rate or anything else. It's just another cost that you add in there. Factor in.
Well, the one thing with Napanee that I kind of see trending is there's going to be a lot of short-term construction jobs that might be coming to the area. Like, we can only hire so many local companies, but we have, Goodyear expanding. We have potentially the gas plant down on 33 expanding. There's some battery storage facilities and different things like that being built. Napanee Hospital. Like, there's going to be a need for not necessarily the fancy Airbnbs that you see over in Prince Edward County, but something for these workers to land in, because we only have so many hotels, and they are quite expensive. So Napanee does seem to be a bit limited for the short-term rental aspect. So
yeah, there's definitely room there for sure in the area, and in hospitals, as I mentioned, there's always staff that are coming and going. They're there temporarily. You don't have to have some project going on. If you have a place, especially near a hospital, it could definitely be a good option. It could be renting to nurses or doctors that are in and out. Yeah.
Well, there's also something to be said about senior housing too. There's a lack of it. There's a long list for Dwayne Hunt's Red Tree. A lot of people that are downsizing, they don't want to have the headache of owning anymore. They just want to rent something that's all on one level in a fairly nice area. So, we have quite a few new subdivisions that are being built too. Would you suggest, because I know you said something about not necessarily buying the brand new, nice house, but would you suggest something that would be kind of senior geared, like a bungalow townhouse? Or do they not, because you can only increase your rent so much per year, and they seem to be a bit longer term. So does it make sense, or are they not moving out fast enough that you can rent it to someone else and jack up the rent again? What do you see with that? Because we are in a big baby boomer area that is in dire need of stuff like that.
Yeah, inventory like that brings up another good topic. Is if you can work out the number so that it covers your cost on that property, that would be enough for me. People always, we want lots of cash flow, but that's not my game. I'm not trying to more cash flow, because honestly too, like any money that I make cash flow, I make sure I spend it all back on my properties or reinvest it, because I want to make no money, because I don't like paying income tax.
Right. I don't really know anyone that does.
So yeah, absolutely. So what I do is I spend it all. I reinvest it all. So I don't make money. I don't pay income tax. And then I borrow the money from the equity that I've created.
Right.
And I live off of debt. I live off of debt and pay zero income tax. And then so if I say I create $1 million worth of equity in my inventory over the year, I'll borrow $600,000 or $700,000 from that, live off of one or two, and then the other $400,000, I'm going to reinvest that in more.
Right.
Either back into the properties or other real estate.
Well, if
you're always growing your inventory, you're not paying any income tax. It's definitely that's probably one of the number one ways. If you're trying to grow your inventory or grow your portfolio, don't pay income tax. You're giving away like a lot of money. May as well put that right back into your portfolio.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we've covered a lot of bases today. Any last words of wisdom for us?
Get yourself a good real estate agent, one that works hard. Yeah. Actually, I wanted to say, like when we started working together, I think it was when I got back into real estate, you were, who was this? I bought a duplex private sale, and then the first house that I bought was with you. You were a listing agent, and you were so hard.
And I was pregnant too.
Yeah. Wow. And young and hungry, you're new agent.
Yeah, I was only a couple of years in.
Yeah, but you worked hard, and I thought, well, maybe she's just, because she's hungry, she's trying to. Yeah,
because you were against.
But you kept, even though you became like super successful real estate agent, you still continue to work so hard for your clients. And I gotta say, like, I'm really impressed with your time management. I don't know how you do it, but.
Well, my husband always says that when this time of year hits, like, March, April, he says, I'll see you in July.
Yeah.
Because I might be there, but I'm like just a corpse almost. Like I'm in, I'm making dinner, but I'm also getting on the computer and taking phone calls, changing diapers, and kind of doing it all. But that's why we have our nice 1 week vacation every year too, down south somewhere.
We all need it, Would you bring your laptop too? Yeah.
Yeah, I do. But I remember the first, one of the first deals we did, actually, I remember being in labor with Carter, and the pains weren't too bad yet, but I had my laptop at the hospital, and I remember my ex-fiance was just like, really? It's like, yeah, who else is going to do it? Like, that's one thing that people don't realize with real estate is there's no time off if it's, but I do cherish that we've still worked together, because I remember you told me when you bought that first house in Deserano, you said, I only buy from listing agents. And I said, I'll change your mind on that.
You did. Yeah.
So here we are 8 years later. So, but you do snag the odd private sale too, though.
For sure.
I still surf, Kijiji and Facebook Marketplace to try and find them as well.
Yeah, the more you get out there too, the more the people just know you're into it, and they bring the deals to you.
True.
Which is great. So.
Similar to like farmland, like you never see any real good farmland go up for sale because the farmers all sell it amongst themselves.
Talk,
yeah. Perfect. Well, thanks for being my first guest on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, it was not so bad. I was a little bit nervous, but it was good.
Yeah.
All right.
Not bad.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks.